seems obvious that if something exists, we can measure it. But consciousness seems to be the one thing we know exists directly. It has to. Yet it's also the one thing we struggle most to quantify. When you actually look at it, every measurement seems to capture only the shadows. Every measurement of consciousness it captures only the shadows, behaviour, brain activity, information flow, never the experience itself. If consciousness can only be known from the inside, can it ever truly be measured from the outside? This is part 28 in the video series and still on chapter 3, Consciousness at the Frontier. And today we will cover how do we measure consciousness. So one strategy to measure consciousness is indirectly through behaviour and report. A patient under anaesthesia may respond to commands or may not. A person in a coma may show eye movements or neural flickers when asked to imagine playing tennis. These responses provide a foothold, but they do not capture the essence of experience. They measure access to information, not necessarily the depth of awareness. The problem is sharpened in the case of animals or machines, where verbal feedback is absent. Behavioural cues are suggestive, but never conclusive. Neuroscience has advanced the field by identifying neural correlates of consciousness, patterns of brain activity, oscillations, connectivity, synchrony, are mapped against subjective reports. Technologies such as electroencephalography and functional magnetic resonance imaging provide windows into which regions are active when people are awake, dreaming, meditating, or tripping on psychedelics. These correlates are consistent and useful, but they remain correlates. They track when consciousness is likely present, but they do not explain why those patterns give rise to felt experience. Some theories attempt to move from correlation to quantification. Integration information theory, which we spoke about in section 2, is the most ambitious example. It proposes that consciousness is identical to the amount of integrated information a system contains, measured by a value called phi. In principle, phi can be calculated for any system, a brain, a circuit, even a grid of logic gates. High phi means high consciousness. The attraction of the model is its clarity, a single number to capture subjectivity. Difficulty is that mathematics is formidable. The applications are radical. If simple circuits are non-zero phi, they may possess a flicker of awareness. Many scientists are uneasy with such panpsychist overtones. Other models are simpler metrics. The perturbational complexity index measures the richness of brain responses to a magnetic pulse. A conscious brain shows complex integrated echoes, while an unconscious one shows stereotyped fading patterns. This index has been used clinically to assess patients in vegetative states, offering a practical tool when communication is absent. Unlike phi, it does not claim to measure the essence of consciousness, only the capacity of the brain to sustain it. A different angle comes from predictive processing models, which see the brain as a predictive engine. Consciousness, in this view, can be probed by measuring how tightly sensory input is integrated into predictive loops. Experiments show that when prediction errors are minimized, as in hallucination or dream, the character of experience shifts dramatically. This suggests that measuring the dynamics of prediction and error could serve as an indirect gauge of conscious states. Artificial intelligence adds a provocative twist. Modern large language models can generate text that mimics awareness, yet most agree they lack subjectivity. But if they ever did have it, how would we know? Behavioural tests such as the Turing test only measure imitation. They do not penetrate to the question of whether there is something it is like to be the system. This is the other minds problem in laboratory form. Measuring consciousness in AI forces us to clarify what counts as evidence beyond performance. Philosophy reminds us that these efforts may never capture the full picture. Any metric we design operates from the outside. Consciousness, by definition, is from the inside. There is always a gap between third-party measurement and first-person presence. The most careful indices may be useful in practice, guiding anesthesiologists, helping diagnose disorders of consciousness, refining our models of brain function, but they do not solve the hard problem. They help us map the territory of conscious and unconscious states, but they do not tell us why there is any territory at all. So, measuring consciousness is a paradoxical enterprise. On the one hand, science demands operational definitions and reliable tools. On the other, the very subject matter resists reduction. What we have then are a set of proxies, behavioural responses, neural signatures, information theoretic indices. They do not pin down consciousness, but they allow us to track its contours, to distinguish waking from dreaming, depth of coma from light anesthesia, rich experience from its absence. They bring rigour to a domain once left to mystics and poets. Yet the mystery remains intact. The ruler measures the shadows, but the light itself continues to escape. So we've become increasingly good at measuring the signs of consciousness without ever measuring consciousness itself. But our most advanced scans, equations and theorems may only be tracking the footprints, not the walker. Which means the problem isn't just how conscious a brain, animal or machine is, it might be whether consciousness is the kind of thing that can be measured at all. Are we getting closer to understanding consciousness, or just becoming better at measuring its shadows? Okay, next up is section 25, and we'll look at duality and non-duality, two ways of seeing.